Welcome into LeatherBrainz, your host here, Slab Dog, and it is episode 174. Have a full crew here today, and boy, oh boy, am I excited to chat with my amigos. We got Alan Casanova Castro, the Big Yeti, and producer Scotty. Gentlemen, let's talk OTAs today. I think that's going to be kind of what the gist of the meat and potatoes is the OTA news, as well as the schedule has been released. So those are going to be the two main things we're going to discuss today. We're going to discuss some legal issues that have happened as well, because the law is important, and we got to follow the law. And there's some people within the NFL, namely Chiefs players, that are not following the law, and so we need to discuss that as well. So
allegedly,
thank you. Let's start out with some OTA notes. That's kind of the fun stuff. That's the stuff that is currently happening right now as training camp begins. Let's talk about Sarah Jessica Parker, aka Sunshine himself, Mr. Trevor Lawrence. Is there a new contract coming? Because the Jaguars head coach Doug Pederson said the organization has been working tirelessly on getting a contract extension done with quarterback Trevor Lawrence. And he is quoted saying, "I've just got to coach Trevor and coach football, and hopefully it gets done," and it will. This guy just gave a general job description for what he has to do on a daily basis, and the whole media is just like, "Yeah, let's go, Coach Peterson." And it's like,
what insights do you have? Well, I coach football. I show up and I write plays, and I teach them the plays, and then we coach football and we play games. So there's that.
me wake up, me coach, me do good, me go to bed, me wake up, do again.
I mean, I don't think anybody under the sun, pun intended, is going to say that Sarah Jessica Parker is not going to get a contract extension. I think that's a pretty foregone conclusion. Is that fair to say? Or is there an actual chance that the Jaguars move on from him?
No. This is interesting because you look at somebody like Trevor Lawrence and you're still waiting to see it, right? You're still waiting to see him put together a full season to make a good run in the playoffs and just put everything together to give him a huge contract, because he's probably going to earn anywhere from 45 to maybe $55 million just based off the numbers that we've seen go to Jared Goff, to Daniel Jones in the past 2 years. Like, these two guys, they haven't won Super Bowl rings, but they're over here getting paid $40 to $55 million a year. So I think Sarah Jessica Parker, he kind of falls into that range himself as far as salary goes. But quarterbacks are interesting in my mind, because I think quarterbacks are the only position where we are paying based off of potential and not proven results. Because if you look at like wide receivers and running backs and tight ends, they're getting paid based off the results that we've seen, what they've done for us lately. Whereas quarterbacks are kind of under the umbrella of, yeah, you're 24 years old. We think you can develop into a superstar. So, all right, we're going to give you this $50 million contract a year and hope it pans out.
Well, the flip side is, if you get it wrong, the quarterback room, it can set you back for a long, long time. So even if you have,
we want to talk about the Giants.
If you have if you have a minimally viable product, you almost just have to go for it. You're just like, okay, is he the best of the best? No, but he does have one more playoff win than like Justin Herbert. So what are we even talking about then? So if you're talking about postseason success, he can check that box for you. If you're talking about what they have done in the past versus what they can do in the future. And if you're the Jags, I don't think you're not paying him that much because he's just the best in the league. You're paying him because that's what the market demands, and you can't afford to like be set back anymore. And they've definitely made investments on the rest of the team. So it's just one of those things, like, you just kind of got to let it ride. And I think if you look at the Jaguars before Trevor Lawrence got there, they are in a better spot with him there now. And you could say that's a large other part of the team, but we've seen teams that have great teams around them, but the quarterback isn't living up, so they just suck. So we'll see. I think it's one of those things they have to, because what are you going to do?
The quarterback position, we always talk about how, it's so pivotal that, it's the most important position in sports. It's so pivotal that you get somebody who's good. And obviously, when you get a superstar quarterback, you see that reflected in the win percentage of the team. But really, the more important thing is to find a quarterback who's not going to actively fuck your entire team over, like the Patriots with Mac Jones or other situations. Like, if you just got to find a guy who's not going to tank you, and then you can try and build off of that. And that's exactly what they're doing here is, T-Law hasn't done a lot, but he hasn't tanked them either. So they're going to reinvest and keep going.
And you can make that same argument for the Falcons quarterback, whose name is currently escaping me, because he's also not the Falcons quarterback
Desmond
anymore.
Ridder?
Thank you, sir. So I think at the end of the day, they're probably going to pay him. And I don't think, like Yeti said, I kind of agree with you. I want to see it all put together. We've seen it in bits and spurts, but we haven't seen it consistently, and that's part of the issue. So I think at the end of the day, though, just like Alan said as well, like, what's the alternative here? What is the alternative? Is you go back to the draft and try and get another guy, and then you cross your fingers that he's better than what you currently have. And we talked about, or I mentioned the Giants just a minute ago, and you look at Daniel Jones, and like Daniel Jones had one really good year where he looked like a very comparable quarterback, and it was the shit or get off the pot year for him. And guess what? He shit.
Mm-hmm.
The man shit on the pot, and he got paid for it. And now he's shitting all over the walls and everywhere else, and it's a huge issue for the Giants. But
That's a lot of poop.
It's a lot of poop. But he showed up when it mattered for him to get that contract extension. And now we're kind of having we're going to have that same conversation again this year. If Daniel Jones comes out and looks like he did on his last contract year, there's going to be a lot of deleted tweets right now. There's going to be a lot of people on the Twitterverse that are going to go and delete their tweets saying Daniel Jones is trash. Daniel Jones is a washed up piece of shit, because he's going to come out this year. He might play decently well. And then all these Giants fans and or Giants haters are going to be like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I don't want this being recorded for social media use. And so that's just kind of the world that we live in right now, where you look at Jared Goff. Is Jared Goff, in anybody's mind here, is Jared Goff a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? Can any of you say that? Not based off of price, but based off of, would you want him on your team right now? And that's a hard question, because obviously we're all fans of different teams. But do you think, just in general, could you slap a top 10 tag on Jared Goff as far as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL?
I think he's in the conversation. I mean, I don't think it would be ridiculous to say that he's a top 10 quarterback. Is that Siri interrupting me?
Yeah, Siri. She said you
Fuck
were wrong.
you,
Please
Apple.
try again.
Just kidding, Apple. You can sponsor us if you want. But no, I don't think it's that crazy. I could see both sides of that argument. I think he's kind of right on the fringe there, depending on the other names you throw in. So I don't really think it would be absurd. I certainly don't think it's absurd for the Lions to pay him the money that he got paid.
No. But like, that's, once again, we're talking situational, and that's part of the equation that we're playing with right now. Is situationally doesn't make sense for us. If the Lions were the Panthers right now, as far as like the current surrounding team, there's no way in hell they're going to pay Jared Goff $50 million, because they're not even in a position to compete. Versus right now, they are, and they have their guy, and they want to compete, and that's kind of what they had to do in order to secure that. So I think that equation fluctuates depending upon all the variables involved. Let's talk about Tua Tagovailoa as well as Dak Prescott, because they're both also looking for contract extensions. Is there a world in which both of these players sign with their respective teams, or do we think one of them or both of them could walk here in the upcoming offseason?
I think Dak, this is the prove it time. I think he has to win now or he's gone. As much as I know Jerry loves Dak, and we know, actually, I don't know. Dallas is a wild card because they generally make really terrible contract decisions. So they could very well just end up paying him and totally hose themselves like they did with Zeke. I think for Tua, though, when his brain is not scrambled, he's super effective. When his team is healthy, they're super effective. I think the end of last year, everybody's going to point to just the cold that was in Kansas City that largely did them in the end of the season. But there was injuries. They were limping into that game against Buffalo at the end of the season to try to win the division. Buffalo was on a heater. It was a perfect storm for them. I think Tua should definitely get re-signed with Miami, but I think Dak has to win a playoff game this year to get that signed, to get that extension. And if
that's
not,
the bar for you. That's the bar in your mind, is he has to win at least one playoff game for him to get.
I think he has to win. I think he has to win at least one. I think he has to show, like, they had the game in Dallas and they got just absolutely just their shit kicked in by the Packers. And it wasn't all his fault, but that's funny because like when you're protecting players you're like, well, it wasn't all his fault. Like Justin Herbert. It wasn't all his fault. Oh, it's not all his fault. And we generally do that with quarterbacks we like. And then you can generally tell the sentiment of quarterbacks people generally don't like because they're like, fuck that guy. He can't win a playoff game. And it comes down to something as simple as that. But I think that's the measure for Dak. Like, he has to win a playoff game. They're more than likely going to be, playing. They have to play in the divisional round. If he think he wins 2, he's definitely safe. But he has to show that he can at least lead this team to victory in the postseason.
Yeah, do you agree with that? Because you were nodding your head over there.
Yeah,
and it looked like you agreed.
Alan, I thought it was funny that you brought up the whole playoff debacle from last season with the Cowboys, because I think a lot of people are forgetting that the Cowboys defense forgot how to tackle, and they let Aaron Jones run for over 100 yards on him with multiple touchdowns in that game. So it's like, is Dak really to blame for any of the postseason failures or the collapse? I guess I think he does play a part, because in that first half, him and CeeDee looked like they had never played together before. So I do think there's two sides to the coin here, but quarterbacks tend to get more of the flack when we're like,
But I think that's justified though. When you're the leader of the team and you're pushing the ball, like, you have to score. There's things you have to do within a game. Your defense is going to give up points sometimes. The other offense is going to catch on fire. Like, the hiccups are going to happen. And I think the great quarterbacks that can win will alter their game or their style, or recognize that, hey, I need to sustain a drive here. Maybe going long to CeeDee Lamb isn't the play. Maybe we do need to check out of some things and just make sure we're holding onto the ball and we're draining the clock and giving our defense a break. And I think that's where Dak, if you look at a lot of the games that he plays, he largely doesn't play within the confines of the team. Like, he does the thing he does, and that's it. And if that's not working, that's it. You see that in basketball with teams that shoot the 3. Like, if they're in love with it, they're just going to keep doing it. But if they're not hitting that shot, they generally can't adjust. And I think that's where Dak is, like, where he struggles, is he's can't adjust to that. He can't adjust to that. It's, if things are going to script, he's good. If they're not, he's lost. And I think that's where Dallas needs to figure that out this year with him.
If Dallas does move on from Dak Prescott, where do you guys see Dallas going? Because they'll probably have a decent first round pick, like mid to late first round pick, if they have the season that we predict them to have. And they really only have Trey Lance right now behind Dak. Are they?
Is Trey Lance making a resurgence?
Trey Lance or Jordan Love? He's going to be a restricted free agent after the season. Do you think Cowboys could sneak him over? Like, what do you think the Cowboys plan is going to be?
There's no chance.
No way in hell.
I think there is a real possibility that they don't re-sign Dak, because they're not going to want to pay that price tag. Now, if Dak's willing to accept a pay cut or what fair market value for probably what he realistically should be getting paid, then he might stick around. But like, I think that the Cowboys, if Dak plays like Dak has the last few years and they sign him to a $45 million extension, I think that's blasphemy, and that is a poor decision on the Cowboys, which they've shown that they're willing to do. Zeke, they're still paying from his last contract, and they signed him to a new one. So, like, you want to talk about silly decisions, enter the Cowboys.
I also think we might be underselling or maybe overselling the degree to which Dak wants to be back in Dallas. I mean,
maybe
this is a position, like the quarterback in Dallas is the most scrutinized position in all of sports. And he has gotten the brunt of that for years now, despite being a pretty good quarterback. I see him as sort of a Kirk Cousins type quarterback, where you put him in the right situation, he can be really effective. But he's not going to light the league on fire, but he can be really effective. And I think he's probably just done. I think he's probably just ready to get the hell out of there and try something new and start from scratch somewhere else and get out of the Dallas media space and the fan base, and they're all crazy. And he just wants a break from all that. So I think he is going to require a lot to stay there.
Maybe he'll go to the Broncos. Maybe Bo Nix isn't the guy.
That'd be cool.
I mean, I think as we start to see the season unfold, we can have a more realistic conversation about this, as we can start to kind of look at the talent and the surrounding pieces for each team and kind of start. I mean, like, just like we did for Desmond Ridder. We all knew Desmond Ridder wasn't the guy at the Falcons. We had inkling of that, but we're like, okay, let's start the season and see, like, maybe he could be of use. And then it showed pretty quickly that he wasn't. So I think we're going to have to take some of that approach as the season begins and we start to see some of these offenses show themselves to kind of map what the future is going to look like. Speaking of futures and what they're going to look like, Rashee Rice was present at OTAs today. Not something I saw in my crystal ball. I thought he was still in jail. However, he will be participating in all activities despite legal issues stemming from this off season.
Innocent until proven guilty, boys.
If Diddy isn't in jail, why is this a surprise if Diddy's still walking around? Like,
is that the bar we're going with here?
Yeah, apparently.
Makes sense to me.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
All right. Well, there's other wide receiver news. Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins is not expected to participate in the organized team activities that start this week. And Justin Jefferson is also absent from voluntary OTAs as he negotiates a contract extension. Not only that, Dallas Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb is also skipping OTAs. All three of these wide receivers are skipping their OTAs, and we see this happen pretty frequently across the NFL for those that are going under contract discussions and negotiations, as OTAs are typically a voluntary thing, and you see players don't go to OTAs when they're trying to get money from their teams, and they're kind of trying to give them the middle finger and say, okay, well, then I'm not going to show up. With all of that in mind, are we concerned about any of these three wide receivers as long term? Are we concerned that they're not going to show up and they're going to hold out, or are we pretty comfortable that all of this is just to try and get an extended contract?
I think of the three wide receivers listed, T. Higgins is probably the most likely receiver that holds out until they get paid or they get moved. Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb are too important to their franchises to not pay them, especially, when they have been very adamant for the past 2 seasons that they both want to get paid. And I do think they will get paid at the same time. T. Higgins is a wild card for me, though.
Do you think Dallas and Minnesota are both kind of seeing who's going to pull the trigger first, so that way they set the market? Or do you think it might be the inverse of that, where they're both kind of racing to try and get a deal done first, so that way it doesn't set the bar for the other player?
I think they're waiting for their players to kind of simmer down a little bit and just get, follow their orders at this point, because we've seen A.J. Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown get paid this offseason. So we know what the expectation should be for guys like Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. They should be making around, $35 million a season. And I don't think that number is going to be a franchise to or a surprise to any of these franchises. So I think it's just a matter of, let's get these guys in the office and sit down with their agents and sign the deal.
Do you think there's any realistic possibility that Justin Jefferson doesn't want to be with the Vikings long term? I mean, I pose that question because he's got a. What happens if JJ McCarthy ain't the guy?
That's the key. If he forces his way out. Well, and Minnesota has a history of not paying wide receivers. Famously, Diggs recently moved on when that was considered like, whoa. I think Vikings are brave enough to, if the package is right, to get something back for Jefferson, which I think is wild because it seems like one of those pieces that you would never want to move from. But that's the one I circled as like, well, Minnesota has a history of like moving on from very talented wide receivers, and they have some still decent playmakers still hanging around. It's not like they don't have anybody. Obviously, Justin's the best wide receiver in the league, but that's part of the market. Do you strike while he's top, or do you wait till he's on his downside and see what you can get? And I don't know. We'll see what Minnesota does. I do agree. I think it's really T. Higgins is the only one that's most likely to move, mainly because the Bengals owner is a cheap ass, and he can't afford to pay anybody, and he already is going to keep Burrow in.
You got roasted for saying that last week. I don't know if you knew that or not, but there was a clip that the LeatherBrainz team had posted where you were talking about them selling the rights to the stadium, and there were some Bengals fans that were up in flame about it. So I wanted to share that with you.
They can kiss my ass. Their owner's a cheap ass. They haven't won anything. They stumbled their way into one Super Bowl. Joe Burrow can't stay healthy, and now we're all supposed to like bow down to them as some supreme AFC team. They can go kick rocks.
Oh damn.
Anyways, I think T Higgins is most likely to move on.
I'm of the belief that financially he's going to stick around because he's going to start getting penalized if he holds out all season long. Like it's the same thing with Jonathan Taylor last year. I mean, realistically it is, except the only difference is we already know the outcome. We know that T. Higgins isn't going to get a deal because you look at their books. They can't afford to pay him and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Like, it just financially is not going to make sense. We all, I think, are of the understanding that it's a very long shot for T. Higgins to get a long-term deal. So the inverse is what? He sits out all year and gets penalized and loses a shit ton of money and also hasn't played NFL football in a year.
Yeah, but that's the other thing is that you have to understand that, and someone in his position, he obviously and his agents know that he's very unlikely to get a top dollar deal from his current team. So what's better, to go out on the field, potentially risk injury, potentially risk a downturn in the season, and then you now aren't worth that big contract to any other teams? Or you say, I'm holding out because I deserve this money. The last tape that you saw of me, I was freaking amazing. We know that several teams would give an arm and a leg to have T. Higgins. So I could see him sitting out. I could see him
Deshaun
just
Watson
abstaining.
said the same thing. And I think the Browns might be a little sad that they ended up doing that because the tape on Deshaun Watson looked great, but the product that they got was not the same thing.
Yeah,
So,
quarterback and receiver are a lot different. I think that there's T. Higgins is still a young guy. Like I think there's a decent shot. I agree with Alan and Yeti that he is the one I'd be most concerned about, sitting out for an extended period.
And if he does play the season, it's not like he's playing for pennies because the franchise tag is going to be $21 million. So he can play this year, earn $21 million. If he has an up and down season, it's important to note that Calvin Ridley, he just got $23 million a year. So there's still a market for guys who are inconsistent up and down. And T. Higgins is younger than Calvin Ridley at this point. So I don't think
I'm
we'll
of
have
the
any
belief
issues getting a contract next season.
yeah, and I don't think there will either, but I'm of the belief that he will end up playing. I think this is just one of those holdouts that we see that is just like, this is voluntary. I'm not doing this. Screw you guys. And he knows that he's not a long-term deal there, but I don't think he's going to step aside and throw that 21 out the window there. Texans quarterback CJ Stroud was out and about in the Houston area helping to clean up after a tornado that had blown through, and he was seen throwing the ball with local kids. I bring this up as a dig to myself because I think CJ Stroud is my favorite quarterback. He seems to be a genuine good human being, and he's also a good quarterback, and I left that organization, and now I get to watch him do all the things that Deshaun Watson did not. Be a good human being and also be really good at football. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Let it be a lesson. There's a very short list of reasons why you should abandon your team. Very short list.
Okay. Well, two of my favorite players left to go to the same team, and the other one was a rapist. So I think all things considered, that was kind of my mantra as to why I was like,
I as a Chiefs fan, I had to sit through Brady Quinn and Tyler Thigpen as my quarterback, handing off to nobody and largely just getting dicks kicked in. So it's part of the rite of passage. But I respect your journey. I would say CJ Stroud, I don't know if you guys watched the clip with him and Micah Parsons kind of dissecting who would their starting 11s be. And I think we've discussed that on this show before, but like that's where I was like, okay, CJ Stroud's like, he's pretty cool. And he's just talking shit to everybody and like getting in everybody's ear and talking about colleges and where did you go to school. I think he seems like a great locker room guy. I think first and foremost, like he seems like somebody that people are going to want to play for. And I think that's going to largely show itself through free agency. So shout out CJ Stroud. I think he's doing himself a lot of good favors by a lot of the things that he's done this offseason.
To add on to that, his confidence is just through the roof, like on and off the field. You just hear him talk and you're like, this is a dude who just played a one rookie season in the NFL. He's talking to Micah Parsons, one of the greatest players in the NFL, and he's just talking shit.
Yeah, it was
shit.
awesome.
I'm just like, dude, this guy's amazing.
Let's not forget there is videos of him walking out of a store or somewhere with Amber Rose too, so he knows how to slay off the field too.
Shit.
I was wondering where that was going.
So was I. I was like, what store is this? Because I was getting nervous. Yeah. Like, was it a massage parlor? Because that's pretty on par for Texas.
That would have been hilarious.
News came out today, gentlemen. Kyren Williams, running back for the Rams, he will not take part in the offseason program this spring, according to head coach Sean McVay, and this is due to a foot issue of some kind. I bring all this up because Kyren Williams has somewhat of an injury history as of late, and I pose this question here. To give a little recap as far as the injury history, he went on the IR last year for weeks 7 through 10, and then he left the wild card game last year due to a broken hand. And all of this kind of plays into the NFL draft where we saw the Rams take Blake Corum, a running back. And then it kind of started to beg the question, the future of Kyren Williams. Does the Rams drafting Blake Corum kind of does his stock value increase here, learning about this Kyren Williams stuff, and or is there any concern with the Kyren Williams injury history? We do know that Sean McVay he likes to use one running back system, and then he kind of year over year he's moved running backs to a different running back every single year these last few years.
Yeah,
so
I would like to abstain from this conversation because I will just openly admit I have no fucking idea what to think about Sean McVay's running backs. Like over the last 3 years, I've been wrong every single time, so I'm just like, Nobody cares. Nobody.
Well,
cares
no, this is your opportunity to buy a lottery ticket and get it right for once. Like, what's Blake Corum? Is he gonna take over for Kyron Williams here? And I mean, seriously, what do you guys think?
Well,
Nope.
just out of consistency, I will say Kyron Williams, when he first started popping off and we were talking about his value as a fantasy asset, my big concern was his size and his usage, that there's potentially some sustainability issues here. Now, I use that as a reason to not aggressively pursue Kyron Williams, which ended up being a very stupid decision. So, I could see them working Blake Corum in, but let's also not forget Blake Corum is kind of old. He's got a lot of miles. He's got injury history as well. So I think they're more likely going to use him sparingly and rely on Kyron for as long as they possibly can.
Okay.
I was going to say it's probably more split backfield more than anything with those two. In general, I mean, we've seen that year over year. Everybody wants to gravitate towards like, oh, who's going to be the lead back? Who's going to be starting? Who's going to get all the carries? But like it's going to everywhere split backfields, and nobody's getting the lion's share unless it's somebody like we've seen with Derrick Henry, which he's probably going to be in a situation too where they're going to limit him to save him for like playoff push, late season runs. So this is going to be the theme. I think if you're going to own a piece of it, I think Blake Corum early could largely pay dividends for you from a fantasy perspective. But long term, as if Kyron can stay healthy, it's just going to be split, and it's just going to be a situational matchup based on who they might be playing and what the defense is running and who do you start. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, Alan, I tend to agree with you too. And I know Scotty had made a comment that Sean McVay, he usually likes to use one running backs in his offense, but when we look at Sean McVay's running back usages from the past 3 seasons, all 3 running backs have been different, but they've all carried the ball 55% of the time. So it's been a 55% split for the lead guy, and then a 45 split between the other running backs that were on the roster. So I think given Kyron's injury history and Blake Corum's injury history, it's going to benefit both of these guys to be rotated out frequently. I'm not saying that they're going to get, 12 carries and 12 carries. I think Kyron is still going to be the workhorse in this offense, especially because you can put Kyron out on third down so he can go catch a swing pass, catch screens, and he can pass pro as well, which is a big thing that we tend to forget about with these rookie running backs. Can they protect their quarterbacks? If they can't, they're not going to be on the field. And Kyron Williams kind of proved his worth in that regard last season as well. So I tend to think this pick for Blake Corum was a insurance policy for Kyron Williams, and I'm not super worried about it if I'm a Kyron Williams owner.
Okay. Last piece of OTA news just came out right before we click record. Justin Fields had stated today that he is definitely competing, and then he went on to say that Russ knows that we're competing against each other every single day. I pose this question: is there a realistic possibility that Justin Fields is rolled out as the starter week 1 for the Steelers, or are we still confidently saying that Russell Wilson's going to be that guy?
Did anybody ask what they were competing in?
I think it was ballet/chess.
That's the elephant in the room. Like, was it quarterback or was it like something else? Because that changes. So I guess if they're competing in something else, yeah, I would believe that. But at the quarterback position, I don't see that being a possibility, because I also don't think Russ was competing with him in special teams, which was rumored and corroborated multiple times. So we'll see.
I have to say, I like the way that you're grabbing your microphone. And for those who can't see, he has his hand wrapped around nice and firm, tight.
It's firm.
Tight like.
Just holding it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to stick with my hot take that I think that Russ is going to start, but I think they're going to use Justin Fields as almost like a gadget quarterback. I think we're going to see like a slightly different version of Taysom Hill and Justin Fields. I think they're going to use them both because they're both on short contracts. They want to figure out what they've got and what they want to do. And obviously Mike Tomlin isn't afraid to make weird decisions and do what he thinks is best regardless of what the narratives are going to be. I think we're going to see both these guys get starting time.
Okay. Let's go over to the legal issues. The total number of KC players arrested this offseason is up to 3. Is Andy Reid letting the barn doors open and all the animals run free? What's going on over there, Chiefs fans?
Okay, hang on. So the last 2, which was, I believe it was a marijuana charge in Kansas.
Reefer.
If you've ever been to Kansas City, and those of you that have never been to the Kansas City area, it straddles both Kansas and Missouri. Literally half of the city's on the Kansas side. Well, not half, but a portion of it is on the Kansas side. And the Chiefs facility and everything else is in Kansas City, Missouri. Weed is legal in Missouri. It is not legal in Kansas. So if you are driving and you take a wrong turn and end up in Kansas, which you could still be in Kansas City and get pulled over, you can get arrested.
You're saying this is all just one big misunderstanding.
100%. The Chiefs definitely, as part of their like rookie symposium, needs to give them all like a Google map highlighting or MapQuest of like where not to drive if you have weed on you. That is 100% how I would solve that. And then shout out Rashee Rice, the photographer, dropped the charge on him. So it looks like that didn't happen. And then I saw a comment on X the other day that said we just need the 13 other cars on the freeway in Texas to also drop their charges, and then we are all free from this disaster.
That's a very positive outlook.
Rashee Rice got a lot of money.
Can somebody hit up Taylor Swift and just have her slide him some money?
Yeah, she could afford it.
She could probably buy the city and just absolve him of all his crimes.
That's what we should do.
People who own cities can do that.
She should tell Texas she's not playing another show in Texas unless they drop these charges there.
Ooh, okay.
Terrible.
My dynasty team loves this.
That seems like a real ripoff. Tank Dell is now the second player in the last few years to literally be shot and then immediately play football again. He was seen running routes this week and looks 100% healthy. And Tank Dell was one of 10 victims who sustained gunshot wounds at a Florida bar. I'm not going to read the rest of this.
What? Why? I'll read it. All 10 people survived, so the only plausible situation here is that the shooter was either Helen Keller or equal to Helen Keller. Because I don't get how, if you were a maniac and you walk into a nightclub and you want to shoot and kill people, how do you fail at that? Like, it's just such an easy thing to do.
It's nighttime.
Unless it's emotionally. Maybe he was reserved. He was aiming
last
for
week
ankles.
we talked about Hitler, and now Scotty's breaking down. Scotty's now breaking down and giving grades on mass shootings. We are slowly we're quickly spiraling.
We're against mass shootings on this podcast.
For sure.
Just to make that clear. In case there's any confusion.
When we need to revisit these when people are shot and then they still go play. When we're in the season and somebody has like muscle soreness, and you're like, come on.
Like Brian Thomas got shot, and the man.
This dude was shot.
Yeah.
And he was here. I saw Aaron Rodgers tear his Achilles, and he still was like walking around like, come on.
It makes you rethink what to think about Michael Thomas or Darren Waller, like these guys who just are always injured. Like, bro, look to your left and look to your right. There's gunshot victims everywhere. They're all playing.
Darren Waller was broken heart because of impending divorce. So
yeah, he knew it was coming.
He did it to himself.
We speak well on Darren.
Yeah. More legal news. Cardinals rookie wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. is being sued for millions by Fanatics for an alleged breach of contract. This has kind of been floated around in the Twitter spaces. I think it was even on the Pat McAfee show here recently, but details of the contract were redacted, and Marvin Harrison claimed it doesn't exist. Fanatics is claiming, though, that it's true, no contract was signed, but there were legally binding term sheet that was agreed upon by both parties, and that Marvin Harrison was trying to use that term sheet to then leverage himself in other negotiations, which was confidential and it was misleading, and now that is why Fanatics is suing him. So I don't.
Like Rashee Rice, you're dealing with the same thing we are. Basically the same.
No,
same thing.
Well,
same exact thing.
I'm gonna go with no on that. I disagree.
Have you guys bought anything from Fanatics?
Not recently, but I have in the past. And it's dog shit.
Clothing? Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, all of
Fanatics,
the clothing sucks.
I don't understand how they are still like making so much money. Other than they're just like the first thing when you show up on Google, if you like put like a jersey, Fanatics shows up, but Fanatics stuff sucks.
Well, no, and so it's funny you mention that because as a Cardinals fan, I have been following this whole thing, and there's a lot of people who are actually like rooting for Marvin, myself included, because what Fanatics does is essentially these college when the players were still in college, they signed a 4-year deal. Okay, so Fanatics will sign them to a 4-year deal, and what happens is typically they're juniors or seniors. It is a good sum of money that they give them. Like there was a player who he got an $80,000 bonus for doing this, or for signing this deal, and he had to sign like 400 trading cards or some shit. But it's quick money for them when you're in college and stuff like that. So it's appealing for those students, but then they're selling away their name, likeness, and all that stuff. So Fanatics then has them under contract to be able to make their jerseys and all this and the clothing, et cetera, et cetera. Marvin Harrison never signed that because, one, he doesn't need the money. His dad is a millionaire who also was an NFL legend wide receiver. So the money wasn't really important. And his dad, they probably talked about this. And his dad was like, dude, like, don't sign this because what's going to happen is they're under contract until typically their sophomore season in the NFL. And they talked about it and it was like, hey, you can leverage them for more money. Don't sign this. Wait until you're drafted. Your stock price increases. They're going to want to sell your product. And then you can negotiate a higher like a higher purchase. So that's kind of what has happened here, except for the fact that now Fanatics is pissed off because of this supposed thing that has happened.
It all comes down to the term sheet because those types of documents can be legally binding. So the question is, okay, did he actually agree to it? And it's worth noting that Marvin Harrison Jr.'s agent is Marvin Harrison. So it's like, okay, obviously Marvin Harrison's probably a little more qualified than some of these players' parents that we see stepping into the agent role, but still, it's not like they have an agent. So is Marvin Harrison, was he aware of whether or not this particular document was legally binding? Did they actually make an agreement that he needs to be held to? So all that's going to come out in court, but I think it's certainly possible Marvin Harrison Jr. is technically in the wrong, despite the fact that Fanatics does suck.
They suck.
Well, it's kind of a battle right now. I mean, it is a battle, but a lot of people are rooting for Marvin Harrison because, like you mentioned, Alan, the Fanatics product is kind of dog shit, and people want Marvin to win this one, and I do too. I mean, I would like to get a Marvin Harrison jersey. I have connections, so I might still pick myself one up. But I will say,
we know,
But
shout out Jenna.
I'm rooting for Jenna wants to sponsor our podcast.
We should. That would be the more appropriate sponsor.
Is that
for us,
legal?
is her.
Who knows?
I don't know. We'll have a sit down with Jenna.
Well, let's ask Marvin Harrison.
I think jerseys in general, like the quote unquote authentic ones, which we know the deal, but they're just like it's too expensive. Like it's
$100 and something for
in these players get
some fabric.
And they get traded or they get hurt, and some of these guys aren't in the league very long, and it's like this is
There's
just
also
wild.
something that I own jerseys. I like wearing jerseys, but there is something weird about like a grown man being like, I want to wear that guy's name on my back. I want to rep him. Like that is just a little bit weird. Like maybe that should drop the price by $10-15 for my own.
I think you should just drop it anyway.
Quick discussion then, since you mentioned it, Scotty. Like, is it weird for a grown man to wear another man's jersey?
Well, that's kind of what I just said.
I'm not asking you anymore.
Oh, okay.
Are you asking me?
I'm asking the rest of you. Yeah.
It's kind of like in high school when, your favorite girl would wear your jersey. Are we the girl now?
Yes, we are the girl. And I will sign up for that. Yeah, I'm proud of it too. Yeah. Like JJ Watt, still my favorite player in the NFL. I'll wear his jersey. I have a Kyler Murray jersey. JJ Watt's retired. Some Sundays it's just like you just go grab a jersey out of the closet, you throw it on, and that's I still wear JJ Watt one.
You're telling me you don't have a lucky jersey? You haven't discovered which jersey is the lucky jersey?
No, I haven't because I've never been lucky.
My brother-in-law is a diehard Chiefs fan. I bought him a Travis Kelce jersey from Jenna, so it's not like it was that big of an investment. But I bought him a Travis Kelce jersey. He wore it once. We lost. He has never worn it again. He won't put it on.
Yeah, no, I don't have that because we lose pretty consistently and our winning is way less often, so it's hard to figure out.
So you made him support another man.
It was my roundabout way of proving my dominance.
Okay. That's a really weird way to spin it. Let's go over to schedule. Let's talk about the schedule here. We'll start with the schedule release videos because there were some good ones, there were some bad ones. And I want to pick your guys' brains as to, we'll start with the best ones. What was your favorite video that dropped for the schedule release video? We'll start with you, Alan.
Scotty's going to love this one, but it was the Chargers one was my favorite.
Boo.
I thought it was funny. I think that's all it needs to be. It just needs to be funny. And like, I feel like some of these teams were trying way too hard. I think this one was funny. Like, just make me laugh. Even the Chiefs one was just like they're crushing things. Like, okay, that's all right. And the Dallas Cowboys ones, they were like calling all the famous celebrities that were on their schedule, that were fans of the teams that were on their schedule. But I don't know. I thought the Sims was a good throwback one. Thought it was pretty funny. They poked fun at all their teams, all the teams on the schedule. And I thought the Chiefs stuff they did was wildly hilarious, even though kind of stuck me in my side. I thought it was hilarious.
I will say, and if nobody has figured out by now, that's who Scotty has as his least favorite video. So we'll let you talk about it in just a second, Scotty. Reserve yourself.
I'm reserved, I think.
Okay. All right. I did like the Chargers one, actually. I thought it was solely because I did like the like hidden additions that they made for everything, and like it just was. It doesn't have to be crazy, and we'll get to the why Scotty you dislike it.
The only other one, and then I'll pass it along, was honorable mention was the Titans, where they were on the streets and had people guessing the logos, and they just was so bad. I think it's funny because you're in a city like that and you assume everybody watches the NFL, and I think it just really it resets you on like, all right, not everybody's paying as close attention as we are, so it's kind of funny to see that too.
Well, they did the Titans one was the same thing they did last year, and I still found myself watching the entire clip because it was funny, because I was like, I wonder what they're going to say next, and then it was something stupid, and then you're just kind of chuckle and you're like, what? And so yeah, I did like the Titans one. Yeti, what was your favorite?
My favorite one, I think it's a toss-up between the Falcons and the Rams, but I lean towards the fucking Falcons because they called back to the NFL Streets, and if you played NFL Street on the original Xbox, oh my god, what a time to be alive, man. I know NCAA 25 is coming back this year, but can we get NFL Streets to come back too?
Yeah, I did see that one. It was pretty good. Scotty, your favorite?
Oh, I thought the best one, the one that genuinely made me laugh, was the Bills with Josh Allen playing Chris Pratt's character from Parks and Rec, where he was just living in the pit. And Josh Allen did a phenomenal job. It was a very, very funny video. Like the whole thing, I mean, it's like, 5-6 minutes long. And I was genuinely laughing the entire time, which is like, that's a very difficult thing for like a brand to do, is to put out something that's actually funny. And it was very funny. And Josh Allen killed it. So I thought that easily took the best for me.
I did like that one. I had mine. I really liked the Lions one just because it was the two.
Those dudes are funny.
It was the guy. Yeah, it was the dudes from Netflix is a Joke, or I Think You Should Leave, or whatever the show is, where they're two skit comedians. One of them's Tim Robinson, and they just had like this weird looking machine in the background that didn't actually do anything, and they just ranted and kind of rambled for a while, and I found it to be entertaining because I think they're kind of funny guys.
That was a very close runner-up from my least favorite one, because there was just no effort. They're like, you guys just show up and we'll just have this awkward conversation, and then that's who they play. Like, if you have seen any of their skits, that's what they do. It's like, I know. I actually really like Tim Robinson. I think he's very funny, but I thought that video was that was among the cringiest of them, I thought.
Okay. Well, then go ahead and share with us why the Chargers one was the most cringiest, Scotty.
Well, the primary reason is because the Chargers suck, and so I am biased. That's true.
Okay.
But I just don't understand. You got this like 18-year-old marketing department, and they're like, I know what we like. We like The Sims for some reason. All these NFL fans totally relate to The Sims. Let's do that. And then they put in like 1 billion jokes into this thing that you don't even catch. Like if you don't watch that, or you don't watch like 7 other videos breaking down the fucking Sims video, then you get like 10% of the stuff that they're trying to say. I just thought it was very, very stupid. I was watching it just sighing and shaking my head like a grumpy old man the whole time. It was very dumb.
Scotty, I hated it too, because they said the Raiders were garbage, even though we put up 63 points on them last year and we knocked them out of the playoffs.
That's another thing. They're just talking shit on everybody. It's like they have no room to talk shit on anybody over the last 5 years. Like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, if they're just like poking fun at headlines, it is what it is. But like talking shit on your division rivals when the division has destroyed you in recent history, like, come on.
That's the best time to talk shit.
That's what I was going to say.
That I think everybody should just talk shit all the time. Like there's no like pre-qualification to when you can talk shit and when you can't. Because like if we're going by that, then the Chiefs are the only ones that can say anything. Well, that's boring. Yeah. Everybody else should talk shit. Like I think that's hilarious. Like everybody
teams that are competing can talk shit.
I saw the Bills player post something because the Chiefs, they were reporting today, and Mahomes was walking from his car in, and Mahomes he has a little gut on him. And they made a joke. They're like, Tua lost 20 pounds and apparently went straight to Pat's gut. And I was like, this is exactly what we need. Everybody should just talk shit about each other the whole time. But some people take it way too serious. But I thought that was pretty good. My thinking of the worst ones, the only one, on the other side of our favorites was the Giants I don't know if you saw theirs. The Giants basically just made fun of the whole thing and then largely didn't even like release a video. They just kind of like interviewed people and they didn't even actually do anything. And so it's kind of like between that and their recent like retro jersey release, like they're just, I don't know what they're doing.
Their
right
PR is not too great right
Those
now.
are gross. The schedules video is gross. Like I'm not sure exactly.
Alan,
what
we're
they're
not on
doing.
the same page because I actually kind of like the retro jerseys.
See,
I kinda dig
this,
them.
gross.
Yeti, who's your least favorite?
Oh, I agreed with Scotty. I didn't like the Chargers one.
Okay, you didn't like the Chargers one. Mine was the Cardinals. I thought ours was dog shit. I don't think anybody even saw ours because
I
it was
did
so
not see
bad.
ours.
I had to go look ours up because I was like, what is it? It's the worst video I've ever seen. It's a minute-long video of a graffiti artist just writing graffiti on the side of a building, and then they zoom out, and it's this graffiti structure, and then it's just kind of got like all the people we play this year just kind of off on the side of it. And I'm just like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, at least with The Sims, there was some creativity in there. This is just like, hey, we're going to go hire a graffiti artist to make a cool little mural, and then we're going to put what we have on it. It was terrible, awful, hated it.
I'm sure Scotty loved that one because it was simple.
It was
I didn't see it.
simplistic and nice. And
I'll
let's
reserve
go over to
judgment.
schedule discussions.
very
Let's talk
missionary,
about the NFL strengths of schedule. So according to Fox Sports, the 10 hardest schedules, we will start with the most difficult here. Number 1 is the Browns, 2 Ravens. I'm just going to keep going down the list. Steelers, Packers, Texans, Giants, Bills, Patriots, and Jaguars. Do we have anything we want to discuss on this? Do we have
And
anything?
the Raiders. You left off the Raiders.
And the Raiders at 10. I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, the Chiefs would have been up there, but they can't play themselves. But largely, I think
Good
for
point.
this list, I mean, some of these teams make sense because if you win, you make the playoffs. You generally, with the way the NFL schedules, you're going to play a harder schedule. Like if you're winning, you play a hard one. I think the surprising team to me that's up there when I was looking at this was that I felt like the Raiders. Like I'm not sure why, other than the division, which I mean, the division's kind of easy. So I thought that was kind of odd that the Raiders were up there as one of the tougher because I figured NFL would be doing them a solid and they'd be playing some of the other lower teams across the divisions. But just the way the cross scheduling works, that's just the way it fell for them.
And I kind of dug into a little bit more about how they come to these conclusions about the scheduling, and obviously depending on the outlet that you read, some of them dive into analytics in terms of projected wins. Some of them use Vegas odds. Some of them, like the Fox Sports one that we're referencing, is just using the win percentage of their opponents from last season. So it's like, okay, what does that actually mean? How many of these teams look completely different? So I know I'm kind of undercutting a point that Yeti's going to make in a little bit, but I just don't even really know how trustworthy these sorts of metrics are. We all just pretend like we know what's going to happen, and we
it
have
makes
no
great
fucking clue.
it makes great discussion. But I mean, injuries happen on paper. Yes, you have to play this team in week whatever, but somebody's going to get hurt. The weather's going to be bad. Something's going to happen, and it's funny how we look at the schedule preseason, and then when you start getting into it week over week, like each week's its own little season. Like in the NFL, like football in general, is such a different sport because unlike basketball, unlike baseball, where you're just playing like a shit ton of games, you're like gearing up and you get one chance to do it for like an hour and that's it. And then you move on and you get somebody totally new, and the game planning, the ins and outs, the chess, like each week is wildly different. And so, it's just fan fodder.
Using last year's rankings is I don't even think a fair indication of what teams change so much in an off season. Like you look at the Panthers. Yeah, the Panthers still aren't good, but like they've made some moves to try and help become a better franchise. And so you have that, like the Falcons.
Look at teams like the Bengals that lost Joe Burrow. It's like, okay, how many games would they have won had they had a healthy roster? Are they going to have a healthy roster?
There's no other great metric to do it because how do you quantify that? Like the Eagles famously many years ago signed like all these free agents, and this was, I mean, many moons ago, and they're like favorites to win it all, and then like they sucked during the year. So it's like, yes, you can't really quantify a move because you don't know how somebody's actually going to land in that spot. And so, I mean, looking at last year's really like the only way to gauge.
Yeah,
build a schedule.
You can either use old objective data or just make up subjective data, and those are the two options to try and project which schedule's hard. And
I think you should use Vegas odds. That's what I think
New
you should
subjective
use for strength of schedule.
But
Because
then what's
I'd buy that.
Vegas?
I'd buy
using?
that. I'd buy that.
what'd you say, Yeti?
So then what is Vegas using? How are they figuring out the odds?
It doesn't
for
matter.
Season 2?
It doesn't
That's
matter
the
because
age-old question.
They're the
reason
arbiters.
exactly. That's the question is what does Vegas use for their numbers? Because half the time, like, it seems like it's a coin flip whether your parlay is going to hit or not because Vegas had it figured out. I think you should use Vegas lines because there's actual money involved with that. And so they've probably done more analytics than sit here and say, well, they were good last year, so they're probably good again. It's like, Vegas is not going to want to lose their money on that projection. So I think Vegas line should be an indication of if a team is going to be good this year or not, or at least somewhat of an indicator, because more so than whatever fodder this is. I don't agree with that.
So I read an article from Sharp Football Analysis, and they asked if strength of schedule was actually important. And they said that of the 17 teams last season that had the hardest schedule, only 4 of them went to the playoffs. The Steelers, Browns, the Ravens, and the Rams, with 4 of the 17 going over their win total. Now, they're looking back only 1 year, but I'd be really curious to see how that stacks up over like the past 5 to 10 years, like how teams have made the playoffs or went over or under their win totals according to Vegas. But that was kind of an interesting little nug.
I think it is one of those things that probably does average out to a like it makes sense over the course of a large span, but when you're looking at your individual team and you're like, fuck, we got a really hard schedule. Okay, well, every single game you're going to have, like Alan said, injuries and random things. So it's like you can look at it like as an aggregate and probably make some sense of it. But ultimately, what impact does it have on your team, the team that you care about? Probably not a lot.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that either because, like, and I'll use the Cardinals as an example. In this statistic that we have here, according to Fox Sports, the Cardinals have the 7th easiest schedule. And I started looking at it and I'm like, that's not true. Like, there's no way that that's true. And in fact, the Vegas has the Cardinals over under at 6.5 wins on the year. So like that to me doesn't make sense.
Suck though?
Yeah.
No, but the Cardinals do suck, but that's part of it. Is like you look at the division we're in and it's like, yeah, we play the 49ers and the Rams, which are 2 very good competitive teams, and it's like, how can you sit there and say our schedule's difficult, but we're also, and part of that is we are in a difficult division, but we just have a hard schedule. So to sit there and say like the Cardinals have like 7 out of the 10 easiest schedules, Cardinals rank 7th on that list, and I'm just like, there's no fucking way.
Sounds like someone's hedging their bets on this easiest schedule thing. They don't want to.
Well, and it's
I hear
really
the
funny.
Texans are looking for new fans.
I do have a Deshaun Watson jersey, and I don't know if I can bring that out.
You should wear that one episode.
He didn't kill anybody.
Well,
I have a Raiders AB jersey. We can wear it at the same time.
Oh, that'd be sick.
I don't know. It is an interesting thing.
Who were the easiest schedules, Slaps? Who had the top 10 easiest?
Yeah, so number 1 was the Saints, and then it goes Falcons, Panthers, Bears, Bucks, Chargers, Cardinals, Seahawks, Dolphins, and Titans.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Go ahead.
No, it begs the question. Like, I just think that's a really shitty metric, and for somebody like Fox Sports to go out and say like, we're just going to look out of last year, I think that's incredibly lazy, and I think that's not an accurate representation of a strength of schedule whatsoever.
You want to know what's funny? You want to know how you're in a dog shit division when 4 of the top 5 teams listed in easiest schedules come from the same fucking division? The NFC
Saints,
South.
Falcons, Bucks,
Panthers.
Yeah.
Literally, you have the entire division sitting right there. I was like, oh, here's the easiest schedules.
All these shitty teams play each other
because they get to play each other the whole time. They have the easiest schedule. Shout out NFC South.
Yikes. Scotty, did you want to talk about the Jets here real quick?
Yeah, I just saw something that was interesting. Mike Florio, he's got some show, I guess, that I get snips from every now and again, but he was complaining about how he thinks that the NFL is prioritizing, working with networks and prioritizing primetime games for, big storylines as opposed to trying to make the schedule fair. And his example was the Jets, where the Jets in the first 3 weeks of the season, they got to fly to California, fly back, fly to Nashville, and then fly back, and they only have a short week then to get ready for a home game against the Patriots. And he's like, no other team in the league has any sort of schedule like this. They play 6 primetime games in the first 11 weeks. Like, these guys are all over the place. And it's just because obviously Aaron Rodgers is a big storyline getter, and obviously they're supposed to be pretty good. But his point was, the NFL needs to maybe put a little bit of money aside and say, let's try and make this fair for everybody. So I just wanted to pose the question, Jets as an example, how much of an impact do you think having a schedule like this really impacts these guys? I mean, they're professionals. It sucks having to fly for 8 hours or whatever and then come back. But is that really something that we need to pay attention to as fans? Like, is this going to have an impact on how they play week over week, especially toward the end of the season? Is it going to impact whether or not they're going to be able to win tough games because they're tired from flying in a plane?
I think it will. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you look at last year, and I know this just being a Chiefs fan, that the way they were scheduled, majority of their games, they were coming on the opposite side of rest as some of those other teams. So most of the teams they played during last year were getting more rest, but that was just a direct reflection of having to play like Sunday night games, Monday night games, turning around, having to play the Thursday night. And I mean, that's just the nature of it. I think the only bad thing is, like, as a fan, sometimes I just want like a Sunday afternoon game just to vibe out and like just relax on the couch. Like, I don't have to wait till fucking Monday night and then watch my team get their dick kicked in. I'm like, damn it, why did I wait all week? Like, at least let me get it over on a Sunday afternoon while I can still have the rest of my weekend to try to get over it. That's like my selfish fan viewpoint of, like, I want more noon games because they tend to be fun.
I don't know. I think it's a double-edged sword because, like, I know that when I travel, I'm exhausted. And I'm not going out there and getting hit by a truck every single time like these NFL players do every single week in and week out. So I'm exhausted just getting on a fucking plane and flying for a little bit. I can only imagine that it's just got to be grueling to go play an NFL game and then get on a plane and fly home and just do it over and over again. It's got to be very, very tiring. But on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, as a fan of the game, none of us want to sit here and openly say, I'm okay with a really shitty primetime game. Do you know how many primetime games the Panthers are in this year? None. And us as fans are sitting here saying, thank God, because I don't want to be put through that. So I really do think it is a double-edged sword because we want to consume good football. And for a primetime game, if that's the only game that's on, we all want it to be a competitive and good game. And the nature of the beast is Robert Saleh went and got Aaron Rodgers, and that's now what they're dealing with is the fact that they are touted as a competitive team. So because of that, they're going to have to, unfortunately, suck it up and deal with this. I get where Florio's coming from, and I agree with him as far as the fairness. I don't think it is fair, but everything in life is not fair, and I see both sides of the coin here because I don't want to watch like a Panthers-Steelers game on primetime. I'm just not interested.
I think the biggest change that needs to happen with the scheduling is when we're talking about international games, because you see those teams that go to Europe or they're going to Brazil this year. And I know there's talks about going to Australia in 2025. But like, if you look at those teams when they play in the games, they look so sluggish to start. And those games aren't very entertaining most of the time. And then they come back to the United States and the next week they have a game and they just look defeated already because they're dealing with jet lag and all that stuff. So it gives them an unfair, advantage, or it gives the other team a huge advantage when they're lining up against each other. But that's my only gripe with the scheduling.
Yeti's anti-Brazil. Let's move on.
Yep.
We did get a question from Elena_chick, and they asked, "How's your Sprite, Matt?"
It's empty, but it was very good. I actually ran out of bottled water, so I am drinking what I have in my fridge, which is Sprite.
Okay, no free ads.
Shout out to Sprite, no free ads.
Notable bye weeks. Notable bye weeks. Week 6 sucks for fantasy players. Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, and Vikings. All 4 of these teams finished top 10 in total yards last year. That does suck because that's going to be a really rough week for fantasy football, and that's what we all do. Week 9, Steelers. And then there's a note here saying, could we see Justin Fields take over at this point? We kind of discussed this earlier, and I think we've all kind of ironed that out. Is there anything else you guys want to discuss on that end?
No.
I'm rooting for Justin Fields.
Okay, I figured as much. Week 14, Ravens, Broncos, Texans, Colts, Patriots, and Commanders. 6 teams on bye for the final week of many people's fantasy regular season. I didn't even know this. This is terrible. Well, okay, let me ask you this.
If you take out the Ravens, I'm not really. There's nobody
The
really. there where
Texans,
I'm like,
Texans,
Stroud,
Commanders.
maybe.
Jaden Daniels. Would this
No.
does this
If you're
impact how you
relying
might
on
draft for fantasy football?
Daniels. No, never. That's a terrible strat. Only when you're like getting down to your bench. Just take the best player available. Don't get too caught up in when their bye week is. I think don't overthink that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I actually it's like a routine for me every year. It's like a tradition that like week 7 rolls around and I said, "Oh shit, I can't fill my lineup." And then I just deal with it. And that just happens every year in every league, and that's just something I work with.
Okay, let's play a quick game and then we'll wrap things up. Interesting win for win-loss, the Vegas odds for the win-loss ratio for these teams. Vegas has Falcons at 9.5 wins. Are we taking the over or under on that one? We'll start with you, Yeti.
Give me the over in the NFC South.
Okay.
Easy
I
enough.
agree. I will take that as well.
Easiest
Scotty
division in football. Over, definitely.
and Alan.
I'm going to be the outsider. I don't think Kirk Cousins is healthy, and I don't think Penix is ready, and they go under.
Wow. You
Kyle Pitts
dog.
breakout season.
Kyle Pitts are what is it? Bust?
Kyle Pitts no matter what.
Okay, thank
and
you.
bust.
Chargers at 8.5. Over or under? Scotty.
Under, way under. 4.5.
Oh.
The better line.
Oh my god.
You're such a hater.
Jesus Christ.
Such a hater.
I mean,
Such
they
a
do
hater.
play the Panthers. So whenever I see the Panthers, and I don't know if this is fair, but every time I see the Panthers, I just think it's an automatic win for teams. And I know that's not the case because it's any given Sunday, but like that's just it's hard for me to get out of that mentality. Alan, over or under?
I'm gonna take the over. Barely. I'll take the over with the Chargers. I think Harbaugh will give them a little edge, and they'll be a little better in those close games. I think that's largely what did the Chargers in many times was just those close games. They couldn't figure out how to finish it off, and I think Harbaugh will kind of give them that edge.
He thinks that they're better off in close games without Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I think that.
I mean, no,
Justin-
they weren't there. They weren't there anyways. So
Keenan
fair.
Allen was there pretty much the entire season, and also Justin Herbert's going to throw like average 125.
do you want to do you want to have a little side bet on this? We'll go top down on all these.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Loser means we get to pick the winner gets to pick whether Hunter or Yeti has to wear the Deshaun Watson jersey. That way
Wait
we're
a
all
minute.
involved.
I'd
Why are
gladly
we in
wear it.
this?
Yeah, I'm fine
Yeah.
with that. I'll wear it.
Whatever.
Yeah. Can I just
Okay.
wear it? I didn't know that was on the table.
Okay, so you're taking the over, Alan,
Yeah.
on the Chargers, and Yeti 8.5 over under Chargers.
Give me the over.
Okay, I'm gonna take the under on that one. Jets at 9.5. That's interesting. Over under. We'll start with Alan.
I'm going to go over. I think, and this is all obviously predicated on Rodgers being healthy, which I think he will be. I think even if you subbed him, I think even with a torn Achilles last year, I think they win more games. So I think with a healed Achilles, I think they're gonna be in good shape. That defense is for real, and Rodgers knows how to win those games, and he's got weapons. So I'm going over.
Okay, Yeti.
I'm going under. I've been a Rodgers hater for the past 3
You
years. so
have,
I'm gonna
man.
be
I
consistent.
figured you were gonna say under.
Under.
Okay.
I'm going to take over because I think the only reason this team still, I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers going down completely threw a wrench and everything, but I really think this team was demoralized last season. And when you look at the roster, they're just good. They're good almost everywhere. Aaron Rodgers, if he can just play competent football, this is going to be a good football team that I agree with Alan 100%. I think they can win those close games, so I'm going to go over as well.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm gonna go over. I was looking at their schedule and like mapping it out, and I'm gonna take the over on the Jets. And now it is the Cardinals at 6.5. This one's really sad for me. I want to say under because I looked at our schedule, but I think, and I have us like 6. I have a 6. I think we could probably win. So I'm gonna take the over, and I'm gonna say they're gonna win like 7 games because that any given Sunday is gonna kick in for one game. So I'll take the over on that one, and we'll go to you, Yeti.
Give me the under. I
Damn,
think
man.
that division's going to be way too competitive for them to compete this year.
I tend to agree with you, but I saw we play the Panthers and I got excited.
Hey, the Panthers aren't going to be a slouch, man.
No,
I bet
know.
people are looking at the Cardinals and the Raiders thinking the same thing.
No, but here's the other thing that plays into it is like I looked at it and I just being a realistic fan was like, okay, like I'm right at 6 games, which it seems like Vegas kind of feels the same because they're at 6.5. But we won some games last year. We beat the Eagles, we beat the Cowboys, and I was like,
Everybody beat the Eagles. Just depends
well,
on when you saw them.
I guess that's true. Okay, you taking over under Scotty?
I'm going to take the over. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to light a fire under this team, and I think this offense is going to be explosive. And we also forget that the Cardinals' defense was actually pretty decent last year and better than expected. So I think overall this is a better team than what we saw last season. So I think they're going to compete.
Yep, I agree. To round us out, I was going to take the over. I think Marvin Harrison is going to be one of the better players on the field at any point. I think that that's a big deal, obviously, in the NFL. And if you look at rookie wide receivers, they tend to make one hell of a splash on teams. And I think this is what is going to propel the Cardinals forward. And I think they're going to be a fun team to watch, as I anticipate many 50-50 balls going up into the air and Harrison coming down with them.
Or Zay Jones.
Fingers crossed. Well, Vikings 6.5. We will go back to you, Scotty.
I'm taking the over. I just think I have too much faith in the coaching staff. There's too much talent on this team. Obviously, with a rookie quarterback, there's a lot up in the air, so it might be close. But I just think the talent on the team, I'm betting on the talent, and I think they're going to be competitive in a lot of games and end up, I would put them at 7 or 8 wins.
Okay. Alan, you agree with that?
I'm going to go under. We got Jefferson holding out. Some of the footage I've seen of JJ McCarthy, he couldn't hit a coach that was standing right in front of him. I think this is largely going to be a problem for this team throughout the year. They're going to struggle to move the ball. I think it's going to JJ McCarthy's inability to push the ball downfield and get it into a spot for Jefferson to catch it is honestly going to spiral. And I think this is going to be a story all year. I think it's going to be a contentious little locker room.
Okay. Yeti?
I'm going under. Let's not forget that the Vikings had a fire sale before Kirk Cousins signed with the Falcons. So they've lost a lot of pieces on offense and defense this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see them last in the NFC North this year.
I was actually going to say the same thing. I was going to take under as well. And I just think that the NFC North has kind of been a laughingstock these last few years. And all of a sudden now the NFC North the Lions are leading the NFC North, and the Packers aren't far behind them, and then the Bears are a huge question mark that could make that leap too. So I think the Vikings are they're just looking at this division. The Vikings are at the bottom of the totem pole, and they have a long way to climb to get back up to the top. So I will also take the under on that Vikings one. Last thing of note here, and then we are going to skedaddle, is the NFL plans to NFL plans to trial an electronic system for measuring first downs during the preseason games. If the trial is successful and receives approval, the tracking system will be fully implemented for the 2024 NFL regular season. I tell you all this because the question now, gentlemen, is will we pour one out for the chain gang?
So
long overdue.
We talked a lot of shit about the chain gang, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but all I can think about, if you just close your eyes and imagine you're wearing your favorite jersey and your family's around you and you're celebrating your team and it's a tight-knit game and your guy gets hit right at the first down marker and then you see them zoom in right as the chain comes down on the other side of the football and everybody screams and is excited, like we're going to lose that moment. And that's a very good moment, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, but how many of those moments shouldn't have happened because of human error? And so I'm of the belief that the moment's still going to be there. The moment will still be there. It just won't be a 70-year-old man bringing a chain out on a pole, and they're like, "Yep, we're good." And so,
nailed it.
Yeah, I think we're okay. I think
I think the measuring is one thing. I don't think that's the problem. I think it's the spotting of the ball that's the problem, because a lot of times they're just the same 80-year-old guy that's like jogging behind the play. He's like, "Oh, he's down right here." It's like, what? even you go through the playoffs, like everybody's questioning the spot of the ball. I think that's the problem. Not the measuring. I think we can measure things pretty easily. Like the chain's like, whatever, the chain is what it is.
But you're going to lose the measuring if you have an automatic spot.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, still largely the spotting of the ball will still give us enough of a whirlwind roller coaster to keep you satisfied, I think, Scotty.
This conversation's turned me. I'm 100% pro chain gang. Bring back the
what?
chain gang.
No.
I'll never forget.
You're so old.
I'll never forget when the referees brought out an index card to spot the ball in the Raiders-Cowboys game. It was a Sunday night game, and then the Raiders were on like 4th and 1, and the referees that brought out a fucking index card to spot where the ball is in between the fucking chains. Like, are you kidding me?
There's still a gap. Like, see, they didn't make it. It's like, well, where you put the ball was totally arbitrary. I get what the lines are, but like, if you fucked up the spot, like, yeah, you could put whatever you want in there. You drive a Mack truck if you spot the ball incorrect. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm all for technology coming in and getting this cleaned up because these 60-year-old men who can barely move and they're not getting it done.
You guys say that like every ref in the NFL isn't fucking jacked. All these guys
there's a couple.
Ripped.
There's a couple, and I wouldn't want to cross them on a Sunday. But
let them use their index card. Who knows what they're going to do?
This is going to be a thing all year. We need to start documenting all of this.
Oh shit! All right, let's get out of here. If you guys have not already done so, hitting that subscribe button really truly does mean the world. We appreciate it. And things are in the work in the background. We might have another show coming here in the not so distant future that is much more fantasy based. So that's a little teaser, a little drop. Might be coming here in the next couple weeks, maybe a month or two down the road. We'll see what happens. But we're looking at expanding. We're looking at adding some people to the list. So if anybody is still tuning in and you are a writer, reach out to us because we're interested in getting some more writers on our team as well as a graphic person. So if any of those tickle your fancy, why don't you DM us and maybe we'll talk. And also hit the subscribe button and tell your friends. And also your parents and your mom and your dad and your grandma. Tell everybody about LeatherBrainz. We appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys doing this with us here today. I love you guys. We
are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out LeatherBrainz.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.